It's like your walk-up music. It's like your batting cleanup for the Red Sox.
Nice. Yeah.
Stina, how you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good.
I'm going to give everybody a chance to kind of trickle their way in today. I was explaining to Susie just a moment ago that here in San Diego, we're experiencing winter for the first time in about 10 years. So a handful of offices here that we're going to log in today that will hear this all on recording because they are without power. Even as I say this, our recording is going to begin with me pointing out that I'm getting the weak internet signal thing popping up on Zoom. So if for any reason this drops off, I'll log right back in from my phone and you guys will get really comfortable up my nose view. But I'm giving just a couple minutes. Does anybody have any questions before we get up and running? I'm going to turn the music off and let the recording run here, but giving folks just a couple more minutes to trickle their way in. Perfect.
I was going to ask some questions about how long you've been offering this program, but I didn't know whether you wanted to get into that now or you'll cover it later.
No, it's a perfectly good question. I can certainly cover it again as well, but it's about 2 years old. So we've been running this
nice.
through a couple of offices there in Massachusetts, actually. My brother's office, Commonwealth Financial Group, has had their staff running through this the last couple of years, and then a few firms here in San Diego. So,
all right, awesome.
So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just kind of ease into our conversation today. This is about where the recording is going to start. So for anybody who's watching the recording, welcome. We're only going to be here about 20 minutes or so. There's a handful of folks that were not able to make it thanks to the hellacious weather that San Diego is experiencing. We're going to get like a half an inch of rain. It's going to shut down our infrastructure for a month. But what I wanted to do is just take 15, 20 minutes today to kind of walk through what this program is, give you folks an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. This is very much a Q&A. I have a slight presentation here. This is mostly for the folks on recordings. If you're here and you have questions, jump right on in. So without further ado, you can see on the screen, my name is Kevin Spindt. I am the president and co-founder at Bigger Futures, and I also own a Sandler Training franchise. If you've not heard of Bigger Futures is the company that my brother and I formed together. We are a performance enhancement company. We consider ourselves professional development experts, and we do that in a handful of different ways. If you're going to work with our company, there's a variety of pathways. You can walk through the door by getting some assessments done. A lot of folks have done talent assessments through us in the past, whether it's DISC or Talogy or Blueprint, you name it. This is kind of our baseline for those in the financial services world. This is kind of like doing a fact finder for a client, figure out where they are, find out where the gaps are, see what we can do to fill those gaps in. We have a sales training program. As I mentioned, I am a Sandler Training franchise owner. I run an office here out of San Diego, providing services all over the country for sales. Any organization that works with sales has to have somebody who handles those sales on the back end. So there's typically going to be support on the backside of that to keep the business moving forward. Unfortunately, that's an area that tends to get neglected a lot of times in most offices. People want to pay a lot of attention to those salespeople, and that certainly works well for the sales departments. But if they do their job well enough, sometimes it's just got somewhere to go. We also have a mindset development program and a leadership development program. So we really want to try to tackle a business from every angle possible. Today, we're going to be focusing on the staff and executive assistant training. This is a program that is built for all industries, but what we're talking about today is one that's specifically been built for those that work in the financial services world. So these are the advisors, these are the managers that have the following types of staff members. These are just examples. I'm sure every office, because there's a lot of different structures, runs a lot of different ways, but we're talking about executive assistants, operations managers, any variety of assistants, marketing coordinators, folks that work the front desk, client service associates, paraplanners, compliance officers, office managers, financial analysts. Bottom line, all the people that keep business moving, either by communicating in between the advisor and their client, or in between the client and the insurance company, the investor, the planner, the banker, the CPA, you name it. There's a lot of communication that takes place. And what ultimately happens in a lot of instances is most advisors, when they reach a point where they're doing well, they'll whip out their calendars. So the handful of people that are here today, if you took a look at your calendar right now, and you were to look at anybody else's calendar right now, you probably have a pretty good idea what's going on. If you're like most people though, your calendar probably looks a little bit like this. There's a lot going on. There's a bunch of chaos. And if you look at most advisors, all these blurred out things are going to say, I've got a meeting here, and I've got a second meeting here, and I've got a fact finder here, and I've got a networking conversation here, and a BNI here. And what happens is a lot of these folks are involved in that level of communication. So a lot of times there's perfect clarity in what you are doing when you're a sole proprietor. But then when you start to work with these other folks, the back end support that keeps that business moving, there starts to be a little bit of confusion. Starts to be a little bit of this look where you're like, well, I can see it, but I can't quite tell what the heck it is. So what we want to try to do is create an environment where if every single one of those meetings that you went into, and our friend over here on the right that's confused about where it's going and what's taking place is going to have a hard time doing their job of communicating if they don't know what that meeting is really supposed to be and it's not clear and consistent. So one of the things that we cover in that efficient communications, this is just an example of that, is the upfront contract that's taught through Sandler. So if you're able to have that level of communication, as you can see on the bottom left-hand corner, even if you didn't know that person well, even if you were new to that role or they were new to that role, if every single one of those meetings on the right that was confusing had a purpose for the meeting, a specific amount of time that it was going to take, the roles of both people involved, and 2 or 3 stated and expected outcomes, you'd be able to stay on track a heck of a lot better and not have as much confusion about what it is, because the meeting would point out, this is a meeting to discuss the following, and we expect one of the 2 following outcomes. Real consistent. And when you have that, it's like somebody turned the lights on when it was a little bit dark, and people back away when things are too dark. So the program that we are talking about, I'll walk through some of the steps in just a minute, but here's the basic objectives of what we're talking. We want to try to improve the skill. This is a skill enhancement program. This is an opportunity to bring up the overall level of competence of the individuals that we're talking about with some specific behaviors and some technical techniques that they can use. Right? We also want to talk about practical application. It's one thing to know how to do something, but if you can't apply it directly to your job, it's not going to do a whole lot of good. So we want to be able to take the elements that we teach and train and apply those to the job. We want to be able to work that within the team. So we're not looking for somebody to be, Han Solo over here. We're looking for somebody to be part of the team and understand how to communicate and keeping things moving fluidly. So in other words, getting everybody rowing in the same direction. And then it's to be able to create adaptability and flexibility, because there's nothing in the world of financial services that's terribly consistent. There's tons of variables, there's tons of changes. So being able to have a skill set that's adaptable and flexible is something that's paramount for the success of most teams, because normally, if there's a person in the process that's not flexible, it makes the whole team seem like they're rigid. So it would be really easy to have a very flexible and a really fluid team, but if there's just one member that slowed it down, you don't get the outcomes that you want. So what we're ultimately trying to accomplish is we want better communication, we want professional growth, we want improved team dynamics, and we want to increase the confidence and competence. And if you've been in anything with me in the past before, this is a repeat. If this is the first time, I'll keep it short. But confidence and competence, they work in a loop together. When you increase your competence, your ability in something, it increases your confidence. When you do things confidently, you do them better. So it just works in a loop. And as you can increase the skill set in these areas, particularly for individuals that may feel like they haven't received certain types of training, you're increasing their confidence and their competence. And that's just something that's self-serving. That's just a perpetual motion machine. So Susie asked the question before, I'm not sure if the recording was on, how long we've been offering this. We've been offering this program in the financial services world for a little over 2 years now. So we've had about 60 to 80 staff members and assistants run through the program. These are some of the things we're proud of. They've pointed out that there's been improved streamlined communications coming directly from the advisors. They've pointed out things like alignment with advisor training and skills so that they're able to be a little bit more aligned. They've been able to point out things like better team dynamics and communication in general, overall improvement in just general professionalism. When you're hearing from the clients, wow, I had that conversation with your staff person earlier, they were just amazing. That also reflects really well on you. So that looks really good from an advisor or manager standpoint. And then just the overall personal and professional growth. Quick question for the few folks that are here. Anybody know what the #1 reason that people left their jobs in the United States in 2023 was?
No development
Yeah.
opportunities.
Exactly right. It was lack of development opportunities, lack of growth opportunities. And Susie was so quick. You're supposed to get the wrong answer so I can correct you, but Susie gave such a good answer. I want to quantify that it is not to say that people are saying they don't have advancement opportunities. That's not the same thing. That's I'm working for one person, they're the boss, and I'll never be the boss. That's not the number one reason people leave. The number one reason is lack of growth opportunities. They're not seeing themselves as being able to grow within that position. It doesn't necessarily mean looking for advancement. That's, of course, there for a lot of folks. But the number one reason that people left their jobs in 2023 was they didn't feel like they were growing. And when you're able to provide something like this that provides that opportunity to grow, you can take that off the table because this is an investment in their personal and professional growth. Particularly if you're in the millennial generation or younger, that is something that's very popular, very important. So this is what our format looks like. This is what our workshop is. It's going to break down to 4 virtual sessions. We're starting them in March. We do 1 a week for 2 hours at a time. We try to run this as close to a lunch hour as possible, so this turns into kind of an extended lunch. The first session, which again starts on March 6th, and I'll put up the dates shortly, it's a focus on essential communications. This is using the Sandler communication tools, understanding professional language, and how to be an effective communicator up to and including active listening. This is going to reduce the number of miscommunications. This is going to foster a more efficient work environment. From there, we move into a more isolated training on DISC and extended DISC, where we learn the 4 different behavioral styles and how you can apply those in the work setting. This is particularly helpful for somebody that handles a lot of conversations, prepares a lot of things for advisors. Being able to do a quick assessment of the person who's on the other side of the computer screen with you or on the other end of the phone and be able to make a assessment accordingly to work within their behavioral style is tremendous. Susie, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about DISC. So I'm assuming that this, if we were to purchase this workshop, then the assessment, the DISC assessment would be included. The cost of it is what I'm saying.
There is. We do a free assessment that's included with this one. There is the opportunity to do a more robust DISC assessment. And anybody that would be interested in that, just schedule a meeting with me. I can talk to you about the details. It's not expensive. It'd be about $50 a person. But for this particular one, a free DISC assessment is provided to be able to get the basics. So the goal is not to turn this into something expensive, but something educational. To get a more robust reporting. DISC. Yep, it's about $50 a head to do the more robust reporting, and that would be easy to build a package around that.
Okay, perfect.
On that exact same note, a lot of offices don't use DISC. They maybe use Myers-Briggs, and they use Clifton Strengths, these other types of things. If you're watching this recording or you happen to be here today and you're one of those offices, just know that extended DISC can be subbed out for one of those other options. So whether that's Enneagram, whether that's colors, whether that's, there's about 1,000 of them out there. So I'm a certified trainer through DISC, so I use that one. But if there's something that's already used within the office, just consider that a replaceable part. But thank you for the question. Third session, we move into what I was talking about beforehand, which is the upfront contracts. If I'm being completely honest, if you talk to Kevin in the confessional, I will tell you that I think upfront contracts are the single most valuable tool that can be used by anybody in a professional setting. If somebody came to one session and one session only, I would tell them to come to this one and take this. The final session is the one that brings things full circle. This is a little bit more around the understanding of the behaviors and the attitudes. A lot of what we talk about in the beginning is the techniques, the how-tos, but this really gets into actually utilizing it. This gets into what Sandler refers to as head trash, AKA the garbage that lives between your right ear and your left ear that gets in the way of doing the things that you know how to do. So this is all about taking out that head trash and being able to be a more productive individual. So this is really where we make things come full circle and where we explain to the individuals that, look, these are new skills. These are new things that you're learning. And much like riding a bike, you might fall and get hurt the first couple times you try it, but also like riding a bike, when you get better at it, it's way more efficient than walking. So this is what's going to help set the tone for that. Now, this is a kicking off program. This is kind of like 101. So we offer a ton of additional things down the road and tons of opportunities to advance. But this, we believe, is probably the easiest way to bring up the professional skills of all those folks that handle a sale after the sale has been made and keep the business working around that advisor running at a high level. So for dates and details, starts a week from yesterday. So we go March 6th, 13th, 20th, and 27th. These will be running from 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern time. So the goal was to run that right through a lunchtime. My San Diego folks who are watching this on a recording and hopefully staying dry, this one lines up right for the breakfast meeting that you guys wanted. It's 8 to 10. So there's going to be an email that goes out to everybody in about 5 minutes that has a link for how to purchase this, access to that. The workshop is normally $1,000 per person. we are running a special on this one right now. So this particular workshop, for anybody attending or watching this workshop, using the link that I send and the one that I'll put up here in a moment, we're doing that at 50% off. So it's going to be a $500 workshop per person. So for anybody that wanted to scan this, you could scan this off your screen and take it there. There's also going to be, as I mentioned, an email that I send that has a link for how to get a hold of that, as well as a link to my calendar if anybody wanted to schedule any one-on-one meetings for questions, concerns, scheduling, etc. But I'm going to leave this open just for a couple more minutes so that any of the questions can make their way onto the recording. Of course, if somebody has a question you don't want on recording, just save it for the very end. But that is me talking at you. The rest of this is me talking with you. So what types of questions do you all have? Well, not everybody all at once. Well, the email should be going out in about 5 minutes, and it has those basic details that are included on there. There, again, is also a link that runs right through my calendar. But just real quick, by name, Christina, Susie, Sarah, Kyle, anything, you guys are the ones that are still remaining on.
So I think a question for me, are you saying that it's a month from now, right? March 6th?
Yeah, so the first session starts a month from now.
Okay. And
We
then,
will be doing future sessions down the road. So there's very likely going to be one in May and another one in July, but this is the first one for 2024.
okay. And then do you find that this works better for assistants that work in firms that follow Sandler?
It is, I think it works best for those ones, but it is certainly not a mandate. So about half of the firms that have run through this program also used Sandler Training, and the other half
Yep.
have not. So there's a couple that have gone through this that are Dale Carnegie folks that have been able to adopt it just as well.
Okay. Very good. Because I know that obviously not all of our Mass Mutual firms use Sandler today. So I was just curious because if we were to go ahead with this for our purposes, it would be for a prize that we're thinking or considering for 10 individuals that have been nominated for an award, and this would be one of their prizes.
Yeah, this would work quite well for something like that. It does not piggyback on anything. The advantage is if the advisors themselves have been through Sandler, there's going to be a little bit more of a unified language. So many of the advisors that have been through Sandler really enjoy it because it brings them up to the same speed. But most of the principles that are talked about, I'd be a little worried if most of the advisors that do well enough to have a staff didn't know most of these kind of
True.
concepts from a sales standpoint.
Right. Head trash, upfront contract, like you mentioned. Yeah. And
Exactly.
then you're really not getting into selling per se.
This is not designed for sales. This is very much designed to pick up the professional skills, but this is not going to talk about how to do prospecting or how to solicit referrals or how to discover a budget or those types of things. This is very much the professional skills of non-sales roles.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
What it does do quite well, though, is it does set the stage for if these individuals would like to transition into upselling or cross-selling type roles, knowing how to have proper communication, understanding disc styles, knowing how to do an upfront contract, and having a good understanding of your behaviors is a really good head start on being able to move into that realm of cross-selling and upselling and so forth. Excellent question. Thank you. Any other questions? Excellent. Well, we are finishing right on time. I told you the goal was 20 minutes. We are right at 19. So those of you on the recording, stay dry. Those of you that were able to make it, thank you so much for being here. Keep an eye open for that email. It is scheduled to go out in 1 minute. So you'll all have that one shortly, and just reach out to me if there's any questions.
Thanks
right.
so much, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Take care.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Bye-bye.